This program is provided by Universal Genesis.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something pretty ambitious. We're looking at sources that don't just tweak the history of Western philosophy. They suggest we need to tear it down and, well, rebuild it completely.
That's right. The core idea you flagged in these sources is pretty startling. It argues that what we usually call Western philosophy history, well, it isn't really that. It's more like the history of how reason has worked inside the framework of monotheistic civilization.
Right. A history within that specific context, not the whole story.
Exactly. And the critique is that this traditional history, it's built on a shaky foundation. It always assumes certain things, like a single guiding principle, or this split between a creator and the created, and, a definite beginning and a definite end.
So it's like there's this built-in bias. Even when philosophers seem to be breaking new ground, championing reason, they still get pulled back to ideas of, like, unity and order.
Precisely. Pulled back towards convergence. The sources really hammer this point, especially with thinkers we normally see as, champions of independent thought, like Descartes.
Or
Kant, exactly. Descartes grounds everything in the thinking. Kant develops this autonomous moral reason. But the argument goes, they didn't fully break free. They kept these transcendent guarantees in place.
Okay, transcendent guarantees. Can you unpack that a bit? How does someone like Kant, who's all about autonomous reason, still rely on something transcendent?
Well, think about Kant's moral law. It's universal, right? Unconditional, necessary. He definitely separates it from, say, specific religious commands.
Sure.
But that law itself, this absolute rational necessity, it functions like a guarantee. It ensures that individual freedom doesn't just collapse into, chaos. It provides the ultimate order, the unifying structure. It's reason taking over the role God used to play, in a way.
I see. So it's still an external or maybe above framework, ensuring everything holds together. It forces thought back to a single point of convergence.
That's the argument, yes.
Okay. So this deep dive, then, is about exploring the alternative story these sources propose, this genealogy of physis, a history of philosophy told by godless nature. What happens when we strip away that external guarantee? What is physis?
Physis is the core concept here. It means nature, but specifically living, self-generating, self-organizing nature. Existence understood from the inside out.
So it's not just about getting rid of God, it's about getting rid of that whole external viewpoint, the idea that something outside the world governs it.
Exactly. The aim is to shift philosophy away from being theology's helper, or even the helper of some abstract universal ethics.
And towards what?
Towards becoming, as the sources put it, the epic poem of life itself, the story of how nature expresses itself, understands itself. Philosophy becomes an internal reflection of the world, not an external judgment on it.
I like that, internal reflection. Okay, so to make this huge shift happen, the sources propose 4 key pillars, right? 4 ways to restructure this whole history. Let's walk through these. Why are they so crucial?
Right, these 4 pillars are like the new rules of the game. The first one is continuity of generation.
Which sounds like the direct opposite of, say, a creation event or a final judgment day.
Absolutely. No fixed beginning, no pre-planned end. Existence is seen as a continuous flow, a stream, like Heraclitus's river, always changing, always becoming. It's process, not a static thing.
Okay, that makes sense. And that leads straight into the second pillar, doesn't it? Imminent causality. If there's no start date, no creator,
then nature has to organize itself. Yes. Causality is internal. The power for change, for creation, for order. It comes from within the system itself, not from an outside designer or force. Think self-assembly, not divine blueprint.
Right. And if nature is organizing itself without an external plan, that must lead to the third pillar, multiple truths. This sounds like where things could get really complex, ethically, politically.
Oh, it's a massive shift. If you ditch the single creator, you ditch the idea of a single absolute good or a single ultimate purpose, a single truth that governs everything.
So
Instead, this genealogy embraces multiplicity. Coexisting laws, sometimes conflicting principles, different forms of order emerging in different places. It accepts the messiness and complexity of reality rather than trying to force it into one neat box.
Okay, so if there isn't one single truth handed down from on high, how do we figure things out? How do we gain knowledge? That must be the fourth pillar, democratization of knowledge.
Exactly. Knowledge can't come from some special revelation or a priestly class interpreting a sacred text. It has to be open, accessible.
Sure.
Through reason, sure, but also through careful observation of the world, through experience, even through empathy, understanding things from the inside. It's about looking directly at physics, at nature, without needing a divine intermediary or a privileged doctrine.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it, in principle.
Flow, self-causality, multiplicity, and open access. That's a completely different framework.
It really is. And these 4 pillars guide the whole proposed 10-chapter journey through philosophical history.
Okay, so let's dive into that roadmap. We obviously can't cover all 10 chapters in detail, but let's hit some key highlights that really show this shift in action. It starts, interestingly, back with the pre-Socratics, but with a different lens.
Right, the very beginning.
Yeah.
Chapter 1 is all about Heraclitus, the burning world.
Fire as the model for reality.
Yeah, existence as constant change, movement, transformation. Like fire, it's never static. Panta rei, everything flows. This is presented as the origin point for all theories that emphasize process and inherent life.
Then chapter 2 moves to the atomists, Democritus, Epicurus, and especially Lucretius. The source even calls Lucretius the poet of the godless universe. That's quite a title.
It is, because they offered the first really systematic picture of a universe made just of atoms and void. No divine craftsman needed. Matter and space, that's it.
But wasn't their universe deterministic? Just atoms bouncing according to fixed laws?
But that's where they introduced something truly ingenious. The Klineman. The swerve. We really need to talk about the Klineman.
Okay, tell us about the swerve. Why is this little random movement of atoms so important for this whole physicist genealogy?
Well, think about it. If atoms just moved in straight lines, forever determined, you'd have a completely predictable mechanical universe.
Right.
No room for chance, no room for novelty, arguably no room for free will or life as we know it.
Okay.
The Klineman is this tiny, unpredictable, spontaneous deviation in an atom's path, just a slight swerve. But it breaks the chain of determinism. It introduces randomness, contingency, from within the material system itself. It's the loophole that allows for novelty, for accidents, for freedom, without needing some external force to intervene. It's physics generating freedom.
Wow. Okay, that is philosophically huge. A mechanism for freedom built into the very fabric of matter. So once you have matter and this random swerve allowing for novelty, the next big question is, how does order emerge from that? Which I guess brings us to chapter 3, Aristotle.
That's the perfect link. Aristotle is included here, maybe surprisingly to some, because he tries to explain order, cosmic order, biological order, without constantly invoking God as the direct, hands-on cause for everything.
But wait, Aristotle is famous for his telos, right? The purpose or end goal inherent in things, like the acorn's purpose is to become an oak. Isn't that just swapping God's plan for nature's plan? How is that truly immanent or free from a kind of predetermined design?
That's a really common question, and it's a subtle but crucial distinction. Aristotle's telos isn't quite like a pre-written script from outside. It's more about the internal drive, the potentiality within the thing itself. He talks about energy, activity, actuality.
Okay.
For Aristotle, nature is fundamentally self-moving. The principle of its development is within it. The acorn becoming an oak isn't following orders from above. It's unfolding its own inherent potential, its own internal, structural, almost chemical imperative. It's biology driving towards its mature form, not theology pulling strings. The cause and the process are internal.
Right, so the purpose is embedded within the thing's own nature and activity, not imposed externally. That clarifies it. Okay, moving through history. Chapter 4 makes a really interesting stop. Islamic rationalism, Avicenna, Averroes. Why are they key figures in this lineage of physics?
Well, the sources frame this period, particularly in places like Andalusia, as a vital sanctuary of knowledge during the European Middle Ages. These thinkers, working within a monotheistic culture, fiercely defended natural reason.
How so?
They argued that the world operates according to understandable natural laws. It wasn't just a series of unpredictable divine miracles, which was a competing view at the time. They saw the cosmos as an ordered system open to human inquiry and understanding. By doing that, by sort of democratizing reason and applying it systematically to the natural world, they kept that physicist perspective nature as an intelligible, self-regulating system alive.
Protecting reason itself as a way to understand an ordered, non-miraculous nature.
Okay. Then we jump forward quite a bit to the Renaissance in chapter 5. This is called the reignition of physis. Thinkers like Giordano Bruno, Campanella. What's the shift here?
The shift is toward seeing the universe not just as ordered, but as alive, as a single divine organic entity.
So God isn't gone, but God is different.
Very different. For someone like Bruno, God isn't a separate creator figure sitting outside the universe. God is the immanent life force, the anima mundi, the soul of the world, permeating everything. The universe is divine, the living body. Every part reflects the whole. It's a radical move towards seeing divinity inside nature, not above it. Hugely dangerous thinking for the time, of course.
And that sets the stage perfectly for what the sources call the core revolution. Chapter 6, Spinoza.
Yes. Spinoza is arguably the absolute pivotal figure in this entire genealogy. He's the one who really completes this philosophy of immanence.
With his famous phrase, Deus sive natura, God or nature. Exactly. But it's crucial to understand what he meant. It wasn't just simple pantheism like God is in the trees.
Yeah.
Spinoza fundamentally redefined God and substance. He argued there's only one substance, infinite, self-caused, eternal. And that one substance is the universe, is nature, is God. They are identical.
So God isn't a person, not a consciousness with intentions.
Not at all. God is the totality of reality, operating according to its own necessary laws. God is the unfolding of the universe itself.
And what does that mean for human reason, then, in Spinoza's view? Is it still a divine gift?
No. And this is the revolutionary part. For Spinoza, reason isn't a tool given to humans by God to understand nature from the outside. Reason is nature itself becoming aware of its own processes. It's a power of nature expressed through humans.
Wow, okay. So transcendence is just gone, completely collapsed into the immanent divine reality of nature itself.
That's the completion of the revolution, yes.
That's a massive turning point. And it seems to launch us into the modern period. Chapter 7 looks at the philosophy of life, Nietzsche, Bergson, Whitehead. What connects them in this physicist story?
Well, after the maybe hyper-rationalism or the idealism that followed Spinoza, these thinkers brought philosophy back to listening to Laban, to life itself, but in a new way, focused on dynamism, flow, process.
Like Bergson's duration.
Exactly. Bergson argued that our intellect tends to chop reality up into static moments, like snapshots. But lived experience, durée, is continuous, flowing, unfolding. It's qualitative, not just quantitative. Whitehead took this even further in Process and Reality, arguing the fundamental units of reality aren't static things or substances, but actual occasions, events. The universe is a fabric of events, constantly becoming.
So the world isn't made of things, it's made of happenings, a continuous creation.
Pretty much. It's a shift from a static world of objects to a dynamic world of processes. Its physis is ongoing, creative flow.
Okay, and then skipping over a chapter for time, we land in the contemporary era with Chapter 9, New Realism. This seems like a reaction against postmodernism's focus on language and human perception, a return to stuff.
You could say that. It's definitely pushing back against the idea that reality is only accessible through human minds or language. It's trying to get beyond that human-centeredness, or correlationism, as some call it.
And reconnecting philosophy with science, maybe.
Very much so. And reconnecting with matter itself. You see this in movements like object-oriented ontology with thinkers like Graham Harman or Jane Bennett's work on vital materialism.
Vital materialism. That sounds intriguing. What does that mean? Is it just saying matter exists?
It's more than that. It's arguing that matter isn't just passive, inert stuff waiting for humans to give it meaning or shape. Matter has its own agency, its own vitality.
Can you give an example? How can, like, a rock be vital?
Well, Bennett might point to something like the complex behavior of an ecosystem, or the way materials interact in a landfill, or even the surprising agency of a power grid during a blackout. It's about recognizing the active processes, the tendencies, the capacities inherent in material configurations themselves, independent of human interpretation. Think of a compost heap that's matter actively transforming, generating heat, breaking down, doing its own thing.
So it's seeing agency not just in living organisms, but in material systems themselves, a return to the inherent power within physis.
Exactly. It brings the focus back to the self-generating, active nature of the material world itself.
That really ties the whole genealogy together, from Heraclitus' fire to Bennett's vital matter. It's a hidden history, isn't it? Tracking these moments where thinkers found ways to explain the world from the inside out.
It is. The sources call it the story of the revival of physis. It's been there all along, sometimes submerged, sometimes bubbling up. And the ultimate point, the synthesis of this whole alternative history, it leads to this idea that the world itself is a kind of thinking existence, physis.
A thinking existence, so the universe thinks.
Not like a human brain, obviously, but in the sense that it generates order, complexity, patterns, and ultimately, through processes like evolution, it generates beings, us, who can reflect on it.
So that fundamentally changes our place in the picture.
Yes.
We're not the geniuses figuring out a dumb universe.
Right. The traditional story is humans use reason to understand nature. This story flips it. It's nature understanding itself through humans.
We're part of the process. We're the way physicists become self-aware.
We're one way, perhaps.
Yeah.
We are the vessels for existence's own self-recognition, active participants in this flowing, thinking reality, not detached observers of it.
That completely reframes, well, everything. Our knowledge, our purpose, and the sources leave us with a final thought on this, right? Something to really chew on.
They do. They offer this image for 2,000 years. While theology and its transcendent guarantees dominated the stage, this fire-like nature, this physis, continued to burn quietly underneath it all.
Always there, waiting to be recognized. So the final question this whole genealogy poses, for you listening, is this. If philosophy, if understanding, no longer needs intellectual salvation from some higher power or external principle, if all it needs is for existence to recognize itself, what does that actually mean for you?
Yeah, how does that change how you look for knowledge or meaning in your own life? Do you keep looking upwards, outwards for some unifying external truth?
Or you start listening differently, listening for the fire of physis, for that inherent vitality burning quietly within things, within yourself, within the world happening all around you. Something to think about.
This program is provided by Universal Genesis.